Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast, where we sit down with seasoned CMOs and emerging talents in sales and marketing to explore the wins and occasional losses that shape today's leaders and the strategic maneuvers that can help propel you to the forefront of B2B marketing.
Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Ed Breault to the podcast. He is a seasoned marketing exec, 15 years of experience, driving growth, innovation across B2B SaaS. Currently, he's the Chief Marketing Officer at Malbek, where he leads the brand's go-to-market strategy across all the marketing functions and really helping organizations to unleash the AI-powered contract lifecycle management. Excited to welcome him here, learn more about some board meeting survival tips, which is very timely. I have board meeting next week, so I will take lots of notes. Welcome to the podcast, Ed. We're glad to have you.
Kelly, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you here. Ed and I did a podcast a couple years ago called Marketing Cheat Codes. So it's fun to get to regroup, except I get to be in the question seat and he gets to be in the answer seat. So we'll switch roles a little bit here.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, first of all, why don't you just introduce a little bit about your career journey, maybe in like 3 or 4 sentences. How did you get to where we are now?
3 or 4 sentences. It took me a marketer to be able to condense it down, but I'd say started in nuclear energy, dove headfirst into MarTech, and then I jumped at every chance to be uncomfortable and always growing.
Nuclear energy to MarTech. I mean, that's the obvious transition, right? I mean, that's what most people do.
No. So a little bit back to the beginning, I actually went to college and studied marketing, studied computer science. So I actually went to school for like what I'm doing now and created some great relationships, had some good internships with like Intel Corporation and First Energy and made some amazing friends and folks that like inspired me. And they offered me a job when I was still in college to transition right into the workforce in nuclear energy. So pretty neat. And it was like big data back then. We didn't call it big data, but it was pulling all kinds of data out of the nuclear power plant and analyzing it and delivering insights. And I just do that same thing now, but it's channels and platforms for marketing.
Awesome. I think I saw somewhere too, though, that while you've been on the MarTech journey ever since, you did take a little side hustle or side excursion to legal tech. What does that mean?
I did. Yeah. So I was in MarTech pretty much after the nuclear energy industry, my whole career. So 15 plus years prior to Malbek, was CMO at a digital asset management market leader for digital asset management. So that was all MarTech, marketing automation. And like I said, I like to stay uncomfortable and continue to grow. And it was my time to jump industries. So had some great, again, relationships. Advice to folks who want to be a CMO: get great relationships. So through some CEO connections and board members, found Malbek, which is like the wine, but with a K, and was interested in having what was in front of me look very different from what was behind me. So jumped industries into contract tech or legal tech and had to learn a whole new set of personas, terminology. And my father was an attorney. He said, Ed, never be an attorney. There's way too many of them out there. So this is my chance to be in legal without actually being a lawyer.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Is that how you learned about the legal side? Was watching your dad, or was it more of learnings from MarTech that you thought could be applied to the legal space?
Yeah, I wanted to, wherever I went next, had to have like AI at the core. Was absolutely intrigued, this wave that we're all on right now. Then apply that to something, this concept of every word in a contract is tied to dollars. I thought that was really interesting. And now you marry these worlds of sort of this like potential like monstrous wave of the legal industry sort of having AI sort of infuse it and what that can do to the future of procurement and legal and finance and sales and that contract continuum. I was just like floored by it. And I did more research. It's a $30 billion industry. And the people were cool, right? I had some really good conversations with the founders and the board. I'm like, I want to play for this team.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, cool. Okay. So you have talked about this phrase kind of changing your dials depending on maybe when you're presenting to different audiences or when you have different kind of constituents in the room. What does that mean? Like, how did that hit you and what did you learn from it? What do you do with that?
Definitely learning the hard way through experimentation and like that idea of, we could talk about it later, but like walking into a buzzsaw. So these dials, right? When you communicate marketing, you have to know who you're talking to. And here's a definition. Communication, it's when I took this statement to heart. Communication is the receiving of information. It's not communicating out because it only counts when it's received, interpreted. That's proper, like end-to-end communication. So who am I talking to? What do they care about? And how much time do I have to tell them? That's sort of like the three levers of changing your dial. So first, seek to understand who am I talking to? What do they care about? How much time do I have to talk? And then you sort of throttle your information. Either you tell them exactly what you want right up front, or you start to story tell and take them through a like a hero's journey, or even ask them, how would you like me to answer this question? And then from the board to your leadership team to your marketing team, in one-on-ones, that dial can change versus them in a group setting. All those things, if you operate with intention, have various dials for your communication, you'll be much more effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. The only way you learn that is one, through experience, and two, through bad experience. That's maybe that buzz side of the face that you just referred to. Like,
Yeah,
tell me, did you have like a horrible experience in a board meeting that's like, that haunts your dreams now?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I had a couple buzz saws. One, I was not the CMO at the time. It was probably 15 years ago. I had this big idea to create a customer community. And it was going to be like this customer exchange community, and people could share best practices and upload code snippets and, have threaded discussions and solve problems, and you could gain points, and it's what we have today. But I was like way too early with it 15 years ago, and they were talking about growth and revenue, and we were actually, timing here was bad. We were actually missing numbers.
Hmm.
And for me to come in with like this big idea, and actually I wasn't in the board meeting, I was called in to the board meeting. So I didn't have the full context of what was going on. And then I pitched this idea, and I just looked around, and our head of sales, our CRO, was like, Ed, you just walked into a buzzsaw, buddy. Like, not right now. They're like, okay, we'll talk about this another time. But I think there was that one experience. So then I learned the phrase, and then also, being when I started, attending board meetings and I was invited to all the QBRs, et cetera, and represent marketing, you have to know who you're back to. Communication is receiving of information. Who am I talking to? What do they care about? How much time do I have? I had this get it all in mentality. Like I
Mm.
wanted folks to appreciate all of the work that it took to get to that KPI, to that one,
Yeah.
new opportunity we generated through ABM, or this wildly successful, customer event that we had. When you have to know what the inputs are available to you, and you have to fit them for that. And there was this other buzzsaw moment when kind of gets back to really understanding your market. We had gone through, we were acquired. The company I was with was a carve out from a $3 billion company, about $1 billion worth of MarTech that was carved out back into private equity. We were starting the company back up again. And folks need to understand sort of the investment thesis that either VC or PE puts on companies, and they're looking to sort of prove out that investment thesis as
Yeah.
you go. And I don't think I appreciated what they really wanted to know in some of the first board meetings. And there was our chairman of the board, really nice, phenomenal person. And his question was, Ed, what's the total addressable market? Actually, it wasn't to me directly. It was to our leadership team. What's the total addressable market? What's the ICP of that TAM? And then how many of active deals that are in market are you in? And we thought it was a great question. We said, we'll go work on it, come back. I think we parked it. Another board meetings goes by. His name's Mark. He asked the same three questions. And I was like, oh, how did I lose track of that? And I said, I'll work on it. We're still trying to source data. So this was like 9 years ago, 8 years
Hmm.
ago. And this idea of like intent, we're at a decade of intent data. Like I think we're 10 years. That's still brand new.
Yeah.
And like this concept of market data, like there was Hoover's and other places, but like to be able to get a proper metric on it was really difficult. So we left after that board meeting, and my CEO at the time, he said, Ed, let's not be in that situation again. Let's have the answers. So figure it out. So I'm like, done, got it. Go away. Do a bunch of research, source the data, and then have the answers. And, you know, the buzzsaw moment was whenever you lose track of really what your board members care about. Hang on their words, like write
Yeah.
it down. Don't talk. Go old school and have a notebook and pen and listen intently. Write it down and like with passion, and then go and do, and then come back and have the
Yeah.
answers. That's like my ultimate advice for you're gonna feel pain in board meetings. You're not perfect. You're a human, but you can control those controllables of understanding what do your investors, what does your board, what does your leadership team want, and then you as the CMO who runs the team, ultimately responsible, you go in and do it and bring those answers back to move the company forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I have board next week. So this is, like I said, very timely for me to kind of hear this, because I had a situation a quarter ago, which was like a lot of questions about what's going on with pipeline. I'm like, let me go find out. It was like some very, very specific questions. And so as I'm building my content for this one, I'm torn between what you're talking about. Let me tell you all the great things that are happening in marketing right now, because, there's always, oh, wait, these are the three things you cared about last time, and I need to make sure I answer those first. And how do I balance that? Like, see, those things you were concerned about, we fixed those, but we're also doing this other great stuff. And do they actually care about this other great stuff, or do they just want to know the answers to the past stuff? So I think it's a really, really valid point. I love the way you said communication is about how it's received, not how it's delivered. I think that's really important in getting to that key takeaway. So I think that, anyway, that's fascinating. I think, and you're right. I think we automatically assume that they want an update on everything that's going on, when really they just want to know stability of the business, momentum in the business. Are we doing what we said we were going to do? And kind of hitting on those key KPIs, to your point. So
I think the opportunity not to be missed, and not everybody who's listening probably has been in board meetings or sort of knows board meeting culture or like the formulaic process of it. And there's typically a dinner the night before
mhm.
with the board, and it's a moment where I call it say that like their guards down a little bit, and it's a great maximize that opportunity to sit down with the board, have some conversations, open up about how things are going, in a bit of they're always the board, right? So anything you say can and will be used for you, against you, if you will, but use that moment to temperature check what is important for them tomorrow that you're going to talk about. And then you can change the elevation of your talk track. If they're really interested in product innovation, then you're going to, as the marketer, and you're talking about, go to market and pipeline, et cetera, metrics, just give them like the most important facts about what you delivered, and then budget more time, allow your product team to talk, or, in marketing, talk about how you got that release out, but use that night before to change all your knobs and dials, go in prepared, and have what you want to say here, but then have all that backup story content data here ready to go should you need it. You don't need all this,
Mhm.
and you shouldn't have to go to all of that, but yeah, be prepared for that. But really leverage your opportunity to have a conversation ahead of time and pre-wire. If you've got bad news, pre-wire. Here's how
Yeah.
it went down. If you had great news, pre-wire as well. Like, here, these were
Yeah.
some successes. And then when you get to the board meeting, it's unemotional. And other piece of advice in the board meeting is to be a dispassionate weatherman or weatherwoman, who you represent the facts, the circumstances, but without the emotion tied to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a hard one. So a couple things you just said about pre-wiring. we don't always have a board dinner, but I do have board meetings or one-on-one meetings. In fact, I have one right after this with one of our board members. I have, this month I'm having 3 because of the topic that I want to cover, which is really about pipeline, to do a pre-wire to get feedback on how will this be received? Does this make sense? Is there something you'd want more detail on? So that I can walk into the meeting next week already prepared for that. So I think that's a great one, whether it's like you said at a dinner or just one-on-ones ahead of time, really important. And then I think the other thing I want to ask about, because you talked about like results and maybe keeping it really tight. I'd love how so I'll go super nuanced. So very specific example. So pipeline is probably the number one metric I think that CMOs have to report out to a board. Pipeline is often a shared goal because marketing isn't driving 100% of the pipeline. You've got partners driving some, you've got salespeople driving some, you've got expansion, customer success, customer account managers and things all driving part of pipeline. How do you, like you said, taking the emotion out, how do you report out on say a pipeline miss when it's a shared topic that you had a part of, but not entirely? And how do you balance that sort of, I own pipeline, I'm taking responsibility for it, out getting emotional about the fact that maybe you had partners who missed, over-delivered, missed, whichever side of the coin. How do you kind of balance that? Like, I'm representing this, but it's a team sport. We're all in this together. What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. And great point too. Want to underline what you said, which is like there's like 3 main motions to generate pipeline marketing with all of the channels, all of, analyst relations, everything that we own, right? Brand, inbound, et cetera, ABM. Then there's partners and that whole marketing too through and force some of those channels to, resell and or do reference selling, bringing you in. We partner with like SIs and ISVs as well in the ecosystem. And then sales, right? Sales and their self-developed efforts and marketing supply, helping them with the tools, the knowledge, the content, the outreach templates, the message, the thing to go sell. That's through sales. So we have so it's establishing a framework, and mine is a 13-stage process of revenue, 13 stages of revenue. And it's an abstract of like a factory, like I call it the marketing factory floor, the demand factory floor, if you will, because it's not just marketing. And it's this concept of units move into a stage, values added at the stage, it then moves to the next stage, values added, and then just continues through. So in our world, a unit is an account. It would be an account that we could do business with, have commercial conversations and transact and monetize. So this 13 stages of revenue, when you set goals, you're going to come up with a revenue target by quarter, periodized by month, and then an annual target, and you agree upon that. And then what you do is you work backwards from the revenue, take into account things like your average selling price. That might be a couple different flavors. At Malbek, we've got PLG, product-led growth, which has sort of a different target to our sales-led growth at the enterprise and sales-led growth at like mid-market, SMB. Just different assumptions on timelines and ASPs, et cetera. So you find the revenue, then you work it back the model from the creation of, if I could say marketing's number one job, it's to create pipeline quota coverage for our sales organization.
Yep.
Marketing, sales, all those things we just talked about, partners. 3 to 5x pipeline quota coverage. Okay, so that's what we're working backwards from. You find those units based on your ASP assumptions. Then you move back stages. So if you have an opportunity stage, which is the goal that we just talked about, that then flows into sales stages, right? So win rates and sales stage, cycle time, durations. But if you work this way, you work towards your engaged accounts where we're having commercial conversations with our MDRs or BDRs. Then you have your aware accounts where they're not ready to talk to humans. Again, I'm working upstream into the where they're not ready to talk to humans, but they put digital fingerprints on you, or they've downloaded some of your content and you've got some content, analytics on there. And or if you're still doing the form thing, you've got their instant qualifying, get a demo, explicit interest, awareness of your product. And then you move into the target stage, which is where the CAC dollars start to add up. and you've got and then up on in front of that is your identify stage or your sales addressable market, the actual accounts that are in your CRM that you have the ability to target. And everything on that side is the TAM, the theoretical TAM, and your ideal customer profile segments. And
Yeah.
so you have this, okay, we need to get to this revenue. So all the leading indicators and conversion rate assumptions are all modeled out.
Yep.
So where's your miss? So let's say you overachieved or you've underachieved. You now can have through marketing, through sales, through customer expansion, et cetera. Because once you hit that 13th stage, you're ready to run an expansion motion because you've got super happy
Yep.
customer. You now can see your hot spots. You can see where you're green, you've overachieved. You 250% of your theoretical eyeball count is what I like to
Yeah.
call it, of advertising and
Yeah.
search terms you rank for, et cetera. And so you're able to see where. So if you have a miss, you can explain through diagnostic metrics, either, let's say, we're taking a lot longer in our engage stage to actually get folks to have a qualifying discovery call, elongations to the engage stage, if you will, or we didn't target enough accounts and we couldn't get them all in market. We were capacity constrained by humans, or we had some sort of business disruption, et cetera. But you now have metrics, conversion rates, and a story along each point in time of those accounts. So you can perform the diagnostic and have an answer. Here's where we missed. This is the correction we're going to go make. And this is the new value we're going to create to actually improve some of these conversion rates or, capacity constraints.
Yeah, and so I love about that one, I think the 13 stages, every stage has an absolute and then a percentage conversion expectation to get to the next one. So you probably end up like 25, 26 data points between absolute number and conversion number all the way down. And I love that idea of sort of heat mapping those. Then it's not a personal conversation of like marketing did their job. It'd be great if sales could do theirs. Instead, what it is we're nailing all of these things, but we're struggling at stage 0 to stage 1 conversion to pipeline. What's happening there? They're aging out. It's taking too long. We don't have fast enough SLAs. They're choosing our competitor. Our AEs don't know how to do a discovery, whatever it happens to be, like that's causing that. But then you actually have some questions to ask because you know exactly where you're breaking down in that 13-step journey.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing.
You even add the time dimension to everything you mentioned, and you've got the stage duration, incubation period that you typically need. And then you can sort of say, okay, what are those things we can do that take time out of the equation? Like what's burning the daylight in here? Because time kills deals, time's the enemy,
Yeah.
etc. It also costs. And then you need to know like when you should not be burning any more customer acquisition cost, maybe on a specific account, and, recycle it or come back another day to recapture it. And then even now with like a lot of Gen AI led growth strategies, you can use the diagnostic to say, where should we put some automation, or where should we put AI, or do we need humans like here to do that part? Can we bring in an agent in who adds some value there that's very specific and like focused on going out in front of the human, adding capacity, exponential capacity? We can start to do that now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good gear switch, I think, that you just talked about with, I'm going to change dials to use your phrasing but not a communication dial on the AI side. So you said a while ago when you went to Malbek and maybe before is that you were really looking for an AI first company, a company that was either, I'm not sure if you mean product is AI or the way that they operate is AI or both. But I'd love to know a little bit about what was it that attracted you to that? Because I think I did a presentation this morning at the Talk AI Summit, and it was all about AI and adoption and all kinds of things. And one of the stats we learned was sort of this chasm being built between companies that are not adopting AI. Sometimes it's the larger companies, at least not at an organizational level, maybe individual humans inside, but not the overall company. And it talked about people would say, I've got to do AI on my phone if I'm going to do it because I'm not allowed to do it on computer because it's enterprise and it's dodgy and it's data protected and yada, yada, yada. Or they would say, I need to change companies or I'm going to be left behind because every other company is working on AI and my company is not. And I'm going to be behind the times if I ever leave. And so I better kind of jump. Then you have the other side who's like, we're adopting it. We've increased meeting win rate, booking rates. We've increased productivity. We've increased efficiency of our SDR conversion, whatever it happens to be. So you see these kind of two sides of it. So that's why I asked. Both of those are in kind of obviously the usage, but also the operating of using AI in a company. Tell me what you were looking for when you kind of made that leap.
Yeah, I love what you said, and that the employee satisfaction is directly related to the technologies that are allowed for them to use. Yeah, I'm somebody who, I took the first class ever, I think it was called Technology in Society. It was fully remote 20 plus years ago. The idea of taking a fully remote class was like really hard to to think about. Maybe was it 25? I don't know. I don't want to age myself here, but a long time ago, before it was like normal. And I just had this moment where I was like, technology is really cool. It's always changing. Humans change linearly, technology changes exponentially. I want to always be next to tech. I want to be where it's going. I want to be skating to where that technology puck is going, and be out in front. And I've always found being augmented by technology to pull out my best, because I don't like to waste my time either. As just like a human, I could get to an answer fast. I can, challenge my thought process much more quickly, get to step three without having to build step three. And I could start at three and get to six. And always wanting to be, again, where spaces are going. So yeah, I had the opportunity to sort of select the profile of company I wanted to go to. And our co-founders, I sat with them, and they literally shared with me, because I wanted to get to the why of the company that I was with. I had a little bit of that luxury, right, and some time, and sat down, and they literally shared the napkins that they had when they had the idea for the company. And it had AI centric start there, like this whole like montage of napkins and notes, and the things that they were doing, and how they thought about bringing product to market, how they thought about innovation, how it just so advanced they were, that I wanted to work with these people, and to be a marketer who can feel so good about product and sort of unconstrained innovation,
Mm-hmm.
culture of innovation, and just passion for it, and why it's scary and why it's extremely powerful. And I wanted to hang out and spend some time, in the next stage of my career with those types of folks. And then as a marketer, like, you can actually do cool stuff and have cool campaigns and kind of be cool. That's all we want to do as marketers, right? Show something off, like really cool innovation, like in the most simplest way, in the most interesting way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's just such a fascinating concept on kind of how fast AI is coming on, how fast it's changing. So I love that you had this sort of foresight to look for that. And you mentioned this idea of being uncomfortable, and that made you excited. How at this stage of your career? Because a lot of the audience for this is other CMOs
Yeah.
or up and coming future CMOs who kind of want to learn and how to learn to be one and all of that. So as you think about, how do you now as a CMO continue being a learner to increase your comfort in in an uncomfortable world?
Yeah, I love to go out in front. I like to go do thing before I say, "Hey guys, we should think about doing something like this." I'll go and do it, and then come and report back and say, catch up to me. I like to go on those sort of learning explorations, go down rabbit holes, and then come back and say, here's what I did, here's how I learned. And then hopefully they pick up on that and they go have some of those same behaviors. And I like, as a leader too, you want to make sure your team is growing too. So giving them chances to be uncomfortable as well, not just being a leader and sort of leading by example and action, but putting them into situations, lifting them up,
Hmm.
giving them very difficult goals, and see how they go and figure it out. I call it the figure it out factor. I need to have that personally. I need to have that on my team. And, I think sort of for folks who are maybe they don't feel like they're growing, if they sort of feel like they're stagnating, go and seriously change your behavior and your outlook, because it's like it's actually dangerous, I think,
Mm.
to get too comfortable with anything,
Yeah.
especially like if I could narrow it down to like you're a marketer in high tech. Again, humans like linear change. Technology is exponential. We've got to find our way up there. You're going to be left in the past.
Yeah.
And then it feels so good on the other side. Like if you're doing something like, let's take training for a marathon, and oh man, I can only do 12-minute miles and I'm walking half, my workouts, but sort of periodize your training over time. And eventually what was you thought was difficult is now easy. What's that saying? What was once difficult is now easy.
Yeah.
You have to go through the process of learning and struggling and getting to the other side so that you can learn and grow and then find your next growth opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's almost creating muscle memory around learning,
Mhm.
that you make it sort of a recurring part of your life. And if you do that, then to your point, you're constantly seeking sort of the next thing to learn, which means you're seeking opportunities to continue growing, never getting stagnant, kind of being uncomfortable, all those things.
And then
Uh,
being like wildly curious. Like even if it's something that, I mean, I've had roles in pretty much every function, sales, marketing, professional services, etc. Everything but like FP&A, like finance and accounting. I didn't work in those departments, but I'm wildly curious about, the finances of the business and how can I as a marketer
yeah.
learn so much about what my CFO cares about or my FP&A team so that I can translate marketing into terms that like my CFO is like, Ed, this was a great conversation. That's, find the gaps in your knowledge and just be crazy curious about them.
Yeah. Well, and that ties back to your original point that you think communication is about how it's received. It means you have to understand what a CFO needs to hear in order to communicate in a way that's effective for them. And that's all linked to exactly what you're talking about, that curiosity cross-functionally and learning other functions, other industries, other behaviors. So I think that's pretty great. Cool. Okay, before we go, we're going to wrap up here. One lesson about board dynamics that you wish you had known before your first CMO gig, or maybe your first board presentation, whichever one.
One word, it's called pacing.
Pacing.
Pacing is really important in terms of how you communicate. I think we talked about it before, but it is, let's say mistakes I've made, which are talking really fast because
Mm,
I'm super excited about all this stuff that we did. And I use words like super excited right there. And while that's, I guess, okay, you have to realize that the board is looking for very specific information about the company, where it's going, back to that dispassionate delivery of the information. Slow down, have the points you want to make the point, give them the chance to insert themselves. They'll become frustrated. Early days communicating, I have all this to talk about and I feel like I only have 2 minutes or, 10 minutes to get it all in. So I'm just talking, man. And I could see my board getting frustrated because they're trying to interject. They're trying to say something, but they're like, okay, this guy, he won't stop, like
yeah.
he's like way too excited. Sure, I get that. And then I'd pick up on, cues, and over time you just learn to slow down, say what you need to
Read the
say,
room.
read
Yeah.
the room. Yeah. It's that whole slow down to speed up thing. Like you're going to speed up your successful communication just by slowing down, creating the opportunity for good dialogue.
Yeah.
Everybody traveled in and we've invested and we're pulling ourselves away from all these other things, and let's just take the time, set the tone, and just manage your pacing.
Yeah. And I think building on that is also, you can give them all the slides they want in the pre-read. Doesn't mean you have to present those 40 slides to them in those 10 minutes. You can hit them just the 3 for the presentation and have the rest is sort of back up for their reading ahead of time, or if they want to reference for questions. It doesn't mean you have to present them all.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so wrapping up business stuff, one fun fact about you before we go.
I like to do triathlon and run and do endurance sports.
What's the longest? Like, what is a triathlon? Because there's like an Ironman, right? Which is like the super long.
Yeah, I've done those. 140.6 miles. It's you're swimming 2.4 miles in open water, you're biking 112 miles, and then you're running a marathon, 26.2 miles.
It's a lot.
Yeah, actually, the coolest marathon I ever did was Escape from Alcatraz. I swam from Alcatraz Island
Mm-hmm.
over, yeah, it's there's like this river that goes through the bay at like
Yeah.
8 miles an hour, and there's all kinds of white caps, and there's marine life, and it's like really dangerous. So it's San Francisco, so there's fog down in the morning at like,
Mm-hmm.
6 o'clock when we start to jump in the water, and then there's no buoys or markers, so you're using all land sighting, and that was pretty intense. Uh,
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense. That's very cool. Well, I love the endurance sports. Good for you. I have sprinter type athletes in my house.
mm,
So my husband's always like, he won't let them do the endurance stuff because he's like, no, it hurts your like, I need like 10-yard bursts. That's what I need because they're football players or volleyball players. Like they're operating in a very small area. And so it's like, okay, you need to be able to have your fastest 10 yards. Like what's your flying 10? Like those are what we need. So he constantly is working with them on that stuff. One day I think they'll evolve into staying in shape through distance and endurance and all that. But for right now, in this little captive window of football training, it's all short distance bursts.
yep,
So,
explosive power, speed.
yep, all of that. Well, cool. So if people enjoyed listening to you, which I know they did, what's the best way for them to find you, contact you, follow you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously LinkedIn, most of your audience is marketers, or if you own websites. Actually, Malbek, we've got click wrap agreements. So if you need to talk about your click wrap game for
Hmm.
your website, give me a call. But really it's LinkedIn, and I used to do a lot of, content creation online. I took some time off, but you'll start to see me dial it back up, and I'm out there sharing ideas and thoughts, but LinkedIn.
Okay. LinkedIn. All right, Ed Breault, thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed the conversation. I know folks learned a lot. And for all of you listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll see you in the next episode of the Next Gen CMO podcast.